Over on BBC Two shortly, Special Agent Cooper uncovers another crucial clue in his search for the killer of Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks. Here on One in a moment, an extended 9 o'clock news, followed at 9:50 by a panorama special on the result of today's second round of the Conservative Party leadership contest. After which our programmes will then be running approximately an hour later than scheduled, with the Paradise Club at 10:30, when Frank and Danny become private detectives. Film 90 with Barry Norman will now be at 11:20, including the latest movies from Bernardo Bertolucci and Alan Parker. And highlights of today's matches at the UK Professional Snooker Championship can be seen at 11:50. So now on BBC One, the 9 o'clock news with Michael Burke.
John Major is Britain's next Prime Minister. He says leadership is a very exciting thing after both his opponents concede victory and 10 Downing Street to him. Good evening. John Major will go to Buckingham Palace at 10:30 tomorrow morning and return to Downing Street as the youngest Prime Minister this century. At 47, after only 11 years in Parliament, he won today's Conservative Party leadership election. He didn't quite reach the absolute majority of Conservative MPs required by the rules, but his victory was clear and both his opponents promptly withdrew from the contest.
It's an enormous encouragement to know that so many people in the parliamentary party are prepared to entrust me with the leadership of the Conservative Party, and I will endeavour to discharge those responsibilities to the best of my ability.
I congratulate John Major. I thank him and Douglas Hurd for an absolutely first-class campaign fought by colleagues without rancour or bitterness, which I believe lays the basis for the unity of our party.
Having worked closely with John Major, I believe, I'm sure, that in the new circumstances, John Major is the right leader for this task.
The announcement of the result was made minutes earlier to a packed Committee Room 12 in the House of Commons by the chairman of the Backbench 1922 Committee, CRANLEY Onslow.
The total number of votes cast was 372. Of these, the number received by each of the candidates was as follows: Michael Heseltine, 131. Douglas Hurd, 56. John Major, 185. Order!
The result meant John Major did far better than expected, Michael Heseltine and Douglas Hurd rather worse. John Major's vote, 185 MPs, was just too short of the absolute majority that the rules said he needed for outright victory in this ballot. But it was good enough for his opponents, and when they withdrew, the third ballot was dropped. Within 40 minutes of the result being announced, Mr. Major walked out into Downing Street to acknowledge the crowds and speak to journalists, having received the full backing of both Mr. Heseltine and Mr. Hurd. Our chief political correspondent, John Sargent, reports.
Mr. Major fought a brilliant short campaign. Only 5 days after entering the race, he wins the crown, to the delight of most Tory MPs fearful of another damaging round.
It's an enormous encouragement to know that so many people in the parliamentary party are prepared to entrust me with the leadership of the Conservative Party, and I will endeavour to discharge those responsibilities to the best of my ability. If I may, I do think this particular election has enhanced the democratic process quite substantially. It's been a very clean election, an election based on substance and not personality, and an election that has dealt very constructively with the issues. And I'd like to offer my very grateful thanks to Douglas Hurd and to Michael Heseltine, both for the way they conducted the election and also for the very gracious way in which they have conceded that they will not stand on the third ballot. It is a very exciting thing to become leader of the Conservative Party, and particularly exciting, I think, to follow one of the most remarkable leaders that the Conservative Party has ever had. I believe as time proceeds and Margaret Thatcher's period as Prime Minister is seen in a proper perspective, it will be seen that she has been a very great Prime Minister indeed. Our job now, I think, is quite clear. We're going to unite. We're going to unite totally and absolutely, and we're going to win the next general election.
Mr. Major, with his wife Norma, was speaking less than an hour after the result had been announced. The news raced through Westminster, a flood of excitement after a day which for many of those involved had been unbearably tense. At first, some of those who'd voted for Mr Major were downcast at the closeness of the result. But then, with Mr Heseltine's announcement only a few minutes later, there was relief among Tories that the struggle was over.
I congratulate John Major. I thank him and Douglas Hurd for an absolutely first-class campaign fought by colleagues without rancour or bitterness, which I believe lays the basis for the unity of our party. I know the rules say that there has to be a third round. I shall vote for John Major, and I urge all those people who supported me to do the same. Let him be now elected unanimously to show our unity. We are about to see the dawn of a new era of Conservative administration. Thank you very much indeed.
For Mr Heseltine, this was the end of a dream. For nearly 5 years since he resigned from the cabinet, he'd set his heart on leading the Conservative Party. Mr Hurd, too, had to concede defeat without rancour.
I'm disappointed at the figures on the second ballot, but there's no bitterness in my disappointment, because I think everyone's agreed, and I certainly feel that it's been a very good fight. Having worked closely with John Major, I believe, I'm sure, that in the new circumstances, John Major is the right leader for this task. Personally, therefore, I shall vote for him on the third ballot. I know that he will be an excellent Prime Minister, and he will have my full and unreserved support. Thank you very much.
In Downing Street, Mrs Thatcher, watching events from an upstairs window, quickly issued a statement saying she was thrilled. "I want everyone in the party," she said, "to rally behind him so that he can go on to win a fourth successive general election." And the cabinet weighed in as well.
Well, I'm very pleased. It's been an amazing achievement by John Major and his team, his organisers, to start from scratch last Thursday and to build up this huge body of support in the party. And throughout the country, there's been a very positive reaction. Over 430 of the constituencies said they wanted John Major. So we have a leader with a very broad body of support in Parliament and in the country at large, and that must be very good news for us.
I'm one of the ministers who knows John better than almost any other, because we worked together at the old DHSS for 3 years. And anybody who thinks John Major is anybody's poodle and is not his own man has got another think coming.
And those who had not voted for Mr Major stressed unity. David Hunt supported Mr Heseltine.
This will be a tremendous moment for the Conservative Party. We can now unite behind John Major, and I think he's going to be an outstanding high flyer. He's going to be a Prime Minister to be remembered for many years to come, and I hope Prime Minister for many years to come.
Malcolm Rifkind had backed Mr Hurd.
Because essentially what the parliamentary party appears to have wanted is a choice, and they've had a very wide choice. They've come down overwhelmingly for John Major, and already the very fact that you've had this instant response from both Douglas and Michael, I think is an indication that the will of the party and of the government is now to unite in a totally unqualified way to fight the common enemy and win a fourth term in government.
Mr Major is expected to announce his first cabinet over the next few days. Some ministers, including Douglas Hurd, will stay at their present posts. Michael Heseltine will be invited to rejoin the cabinet. There's speculation that he might take environment and the reform of the poll tax. But the shape of the new cabinet has not been uppermost in Mr Major's mind. He was not sure that he would win. Mr Major left Downing Street to thank his campaign workers. He was prepared to look excited in public for the first time on the greatest day of his career.
And Mr Major's supporters said tonight that they're satisfied they ran a very effective campaign. Tonight at their campaign headquarters in central London, they're celebrating his victory.
I'd like personally, if I may, to thank my many parliamentary colleagues for the
The champagne flowed and toasts were drunk at John Major's jubilant campaign headquarters tonight.
Everyone's elated. We've worked round the clock for 5 days and we've put together this magnificent score of votes, and more important, we've elected the best Prime Minister this country could have.
Swin, how are you feeling now? We're feeling very good. Very fine result. We're very pleased with it. Thank you very much indeed.
Beaming from ear to ear, John Major and his wife came to congratulate his troops.
It is a remarkable day that somebody so good should have been chosen as the leader of the Conservative Party.
Well done, John.
Inside, the party was in noisy high spirits. After a drink to celebrate, John Major returned to number 11 Downing Street for his last night as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I'm very pleased with the result. It was within 4 votes of our estimate. We're very pleased. Thank you very much.
Well, joining me now from outside 11 Downing Street is Polly Toynbee. Polly, what are they doing in number 11 now? Celebrating or packing?
Well, John Major came back here a short while ago. John Wakeham, standing outside here, said he was getting down to business, which is, of course, very much in the John Major style, so I'm not sure how much partying is going on here. I think most of that's going on at the campaign headquarters.
It's not a big move, is it, just moving next door? What about the comings and goings there since the victory?
There have been a lot of comings and goings. Many of the leading people in the party have come in to offer their congratulations and come out again, expressed their delight with the result and made great expressions of party unity for the future.
Polly Toynbee, thanks very much. Among Conservative backbenchers, there's immense relief that the leadership contest is over, and speculation has already started about who the new Prime Minister will choose for his first cabinet.
The news flashed round Westminster. A quarter of a mile away, it quite literally flashed round Piccadilly Circus. But even though John Major was 2 short of the magic number, the announcement that the other 2 were pulling out was warmly welcomed at Westminster. In the Major camp, there was jubilation.
I'm delighted, absolutely delighted, and I'm delighted also that the other 2 moved so quickly to withdraw from the 3rd ballot. It means that we can unite behind John. We will be a fine Prime Minister.
The fact that Douglas Hurd and Michael Heseltine conceded victory is great. I mean, he was 2 short. It was John Major, that's all. Our Prime Minister was 4 short. Sorry, Margaret Thatcher was. So we're on the road back now, and thank goodness all this is out of the way. And we can...
Even old hands will have to learn new names, but the dominant emotion at Westminster among Tory MPs, apart from the joy or disappointment, is one of relief that it's all over.
I am sorry for Michael. He was the one who had the courage to stand up and be counted, but it's been an exercise in democracy, and he very rightly has conceded on that vote.
Michael Heseltine has decided to withdraw, and I think we'd all be very grateful to him for that, because it means that the splits that we've endured over the past couple of weeks are over now, and we can all come together and behind John Major, go on, rebuild the fortunes of the government and win the next election.
After all the traumas and upsets of the past 2 weeks, Tory MPs are now playing one of their favourite games, second-guessing the reshuffle and what to do with Michael Heseltine.
I'm not going to comment on that because my views on it are very strongly felt. He's been divisive. Whether John thinks that there's something he can do with him, I would leave that up to him. It's not my decision, and perhaps just as well for Mr. Heseltine.
You're asking what job Michael Heseltine might do. I think if he was made Secretary of State for something and Theresa was put in as a Minister of State, if the 2 of them could agree on things, the rest of us would follow them.
There is not that much in terms of policy and philosophy between the 3 candidates. I would call them John Major inside right, Douglas Hurd centre forward, Michael Heseltine inside left. They will have no difficulty at all in working with one another, and I think that's proved by the way the other 2 candidates have said they're going to put their weight behind John Major now.
The public have been spectators on a contest perhaps uniquely preoccupied with personalities, particularly Mrs. Thatcher's. Now this is all over, MPs are going to have to face up to their policy difficulties.
We have to get the economy right. Inflation is too high, interest rates are too high. That is the top priority of things that we have to put right now. But we realise that, and that's what we're going to do.
I myself didn't think that there was a very great deal of difference between Mr. Hurd and Mr. Major on Europe. It does, of course, leave us who are more sceptical about Europe in much the same position that we were in, save that we do not have the support of Mrs. Thatcher on this issue.
The government has another potential 18 months to go. I think the economy is going to improve, the interest rates are going to come down, inflation is going to come down, the new team can be seen in action, John Major can be seen as the Prime Minister of high quality that he will be, and then he must choose his time when he's going to get the biggest majority.
The word on everyone's lips at Westminster is unity, and that powerful instinct of survival, which always used to guide a Tory MP's behaviour, looks set to re-emerge. But although they've changed their leader, their policy problems remain, and the difficulties over the poll tax, inflation, Europe, high interest rates haven't yet gone away.
Well, joining me from Westminster is our political editor, John Cole. John, how did John Major manage to do so well on this ballot? What was the crucial factor in the contest?
Michael, first of all, I think I would like to tell you that John Major has now started being briefed by the number 10 officials for the information he needs to have to be Prime Minister. And I understand he's already spoken by telephone to Douglas Hurd and to Michael Heseltine, and that they're coming in to see him tomorrow. Expected some cabinet appointments tomorrow night, but not absolutely certain, because he hasn't done any planning for that. He's then going through later this evening to have a drink with Mrs. Thatcher in number 10.
Can I go back to the
yes,
question?
Indeed. I just thought you would like to have that news
Can you
first.
pin down the crucial factor in his victory today?
I think what damaged Michael Heseltine was the very severe reaction in the constituencies over the weekend, the people who blamed him for removing Mrs. Thatcher. I mean, as we know, the Conservative Party is always loyal to the leader who's in office, and they've been loyal to Mrs. Thatcher as they were to Mr. Heath 15 years ago. And Michael Heseltine, I think, got a lot of the blame of that, and although some MPs were prepared to ignore their constituency associations, there were others who were clearly influenced by them and turned away from him. That was why his vote, I think, the primary reason why his vote dropped.
And they ignored the polls that seemed to indicate that Mr. Heseltine was the man most likely to win the next election?
Well, of course, those polls were all over the shop. I mean, the major supporters felt that the polls yesterday showed very clearly that it had moved in their direction, that there was a trend. For my money, the polls are fairly meaningless anyhow, because they really are asking ordinary people who are not as interested in politics as we are, ordinary people, to make judgments on entirely hypothetical situations with leaders who weren't there. The polls will really matter in January and February when we see Mr. Major as Prime Minister settled down against Mr. Kinnock, Mr. Ashdown and others.
Briefly, John, because we're coming back to you later in the programme, is this the end of Michael Heseltine's hopes of his campaign for 10 Downing Street at least?
Well, unless Mr. Major runs into some quite unforeseen trouble, I would have thought Mr. Heseltine is likely to be too old until he gives up the leadership. Unless, of course, the Tories lose the election, and I don't know what would happen then. I suppose there might be another leadership contest. But I would have thought that Michael Heseltine, at his age, has a big disappointment tonight. But he's going to come back into government, so that will please him.
John Cole, for the time being, thanks. A short time ago, our reporter Fergus Walsh spoke to the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kenneth Baker. He asked him first for his reaction to tonight's result.
I'm delighted for John and Norma. I'm delighted for the Conservative Party. And I'm delighted the decision has been made tonight and we don't drag on till Thursday.
But can you now have any semblance of party unity? I mean, just over a fraction of Tory MPs didn't vote for John Major.
But they all are members of the Conservative Party. They want to unite, they will unite, and they'll unite behind John Major's strong leadership. This is what the party's been yearning to do. And at the weekend, the grassroots reaction from the party was very, very clear. They wanted John Major. John Major is now our leader. The party will unite behind him, and I welcome very much the words that Michael Heseltine and Douglas Hurd have said tonight.
What do you think ought to happen to Mr. Heseltine and his supporters?
That is really a matter for John to decide, not for me. I'm quite sure that those people who voted for Michael tonight will support our new leader. I've absolutely no doubt of that whatsoever. And may I just say, I hope there'll be no recriminations in the Conservative Party of what has happened, no deselections. We've got to pull together. We must draw a line under this episode. We must pull together, we must unite, we must go forward to victory.
You always said that you didn't want to see this election. Do you think that it has badly damaged the Conservative Party?
I think it's been a bruising time. It certainly put us in the news. I mean, to say you had nothing else to report for a very long time, actually, in spite of great events in the world, and it's improved our standing in the opinion polls. It's also certainly improved the noticeability of the three candidates and of John Major. All that is positive. But it's got to go beyond that. That might be a little bit of froth. I want to see a solid achievement. The achievements of the government come through. I think that John has an important agenda in front of him. I think John would like to see the benefits and successes of his economic policy come through, lower inflation, lower interest rates, clearly the review of the community charge, but by far the biggest problem facing him tomorrow when he goes to number 10 is the Gulf crisis.
The Labour leader Neil Kinnock has again called for an immediate general election. He described Mr. Major as the no-change Prime Minister, who would never be able to give Britain the fresh start it needed. Our political correspondent Mark Mardell put it to Mr. Kinnock that he must now be worried by the new unity in the Tory party.
The unity that the Tory party is trying to display will be synthetic and skin deep, and we'll find that out very quickly indeed. So far as the person they've elected is concerned, the British people wanted change, and the Tory party has given them all of the same. John Major is a Thatcherette. That's how he fought the election, that's how he got elected.
Some of your own colleagues call this the nightmare scenario for Labour.
Some of our people are not terribly expert in these things, and under a certain degree of pressure in recent weeks, they've been more prone to make dramatic statements than usually is the case. A very small number of them. I think now that the Tories have completed their election, peculiarly last week, Prime Minister got a majority and got deposed because of it. This week, a candidate fails to get a majority and becomes Prime Minister because of it. That is a matter of total bewilderment to just about everybody, and it means all the time that the Tories will only face themselves. They're afraid to face the British people.
You're calling for a general election, but would you really welcome one? Would you really welcome the challenge of fighting him in a general election?
I want a general election, I want it now. Not only do I want it, the British people want it, because everybody realizes that this whole condition of the Conservative Party has been brought about by their desperate desire to dump Mrs. Thatcher. They have brought that about, and they've staged a coup. And we should have governments chosen by the people in this country. As I said last week, and I've reminded people all along, this has been